Good morning, everyone. My name is Rajesh Pichaimani, and I'm a solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. In this session, we're going to walk you through the details of S3 metadata information of how to leverage and gain insights. I'm going to provide an overview of the metadata workshop, do a demo walkthrough, and finally conclude with references. This is the workshop that came out very recently, Gaining Insights with S3 Metadata. And here is the QR code to actually help you go through this detail. There are 5 different labs, starting with the table bucket and all the way going to visualization. And in this session, I'm going to walk you through those. Let me switch to the console and get started. So this is the workshop. And as I mentioned, we're going to start with the lab 1. The first step here in this workshop is creating a table bucket. This is a new capability. And the procedure is to create table bucket, provide a table bucket name. If you're going to do this for the very first time, there'll be a checkbox with the enable button, which will do automatic integration with the analytical services. Since I have already done this once, it is showing this already enabled, and you don't need to do every time, just once. Once this table bucket has been created, you will be presented with this Amazon resource name. Copy this ARN, and that will be needed in the subsequent steps. Once this table bucket is created, what we have essentially achieved is created a table bucket where all the metadata information will be stored, and we will do the association in the next step. Coming back to the next step here, we will choose general purpose buckets. There are 4 of them here right now. We're going to choose the metadata primary. This consists of 6 folders with the prefixes under it, folder objects underneath. We are going to associate the metadata table bucket with this folder. Click on metadata. And again, if you will be doing this for the very first time, create metadata configuration. You will present this table ARN, which was copied from the previous step. One thing to make a note for sure is the metadata table name, S3 metadata primary. If you do not change this default name to this particular information, the subsequent queries in the other labs will fail. So ensure that this one is consistent, and then complete the metadata configuration file. And after a while, you will see this status going active. Okay. To illustrate an example, I'm going to pick a different folder, click on metadata, and I'm going to walk through the steps but to illustrate. So create metadata configuration. Here you will be using this table bucket ARN copied from the previous lab, which is this one. Okay. And the metadata table name, you will have to change this to the one that was suggested in the lab workshop. Okay. Create metadata table. Once this is done, you are essentially associated the metadata table bucket to this primary ones, which means that you will be able to start collecting all the metadata of these different objects and folders within this primary one. Okay. The third lab in this workshop is to configure the permissions associated and start querying using Athena. Going to lake formation, data permissions, you will have two steps in this lake formation. The first step in this particular lab 3 is granting. Select IAM users and roles. Select WS participant role. Who is this particular role? It's essentially this particular user that we have logged in the workshop, right? Essentially, we are telling that grant certain set of permissions to this particular user to start accessing the corresponding resources. Named data catalog resource. And we are telling this metadata table bucket and the catalog within that, the database within that catalog, and all the tables within that database. You're going to say, give me select and describe table permissions for this particular user alone. Okay. And then we'll say grant. Once this has been granted, you will see two additional rows, the ones here, WS participant role on the table and the columns in this particular database, and all the tables that we have selected. And what are we doing? The permissions are select and describe. Okay. These are the two additional entries that you will start seeing after you completed successfully the step that I just said. Once this has been done, then we will go to Athena to start querying. Before starting the query operations, you will have to do some settings here to store the results, manage, and click on browse, and you will pick the results folder to store the query results. Once this has been completed, you'll come to editor, do a refresh, and you will start seeing the catalog information and the database details and the table information, right? That contains all the metadata information of the prefixes under each of the folders. Click on these three ellipses, preview table, and it will populate this particular query. Click on run, and it will populate the 10 rows as outlined in the query with all the metadata details. So you're seeing here the txt file under operations, bin file under the operations, etc. So these are the information, sequence number, record type, so on and so forth. As you scroll to the right, you'll see more and more metadata information. And I want to bring your attention to one of them called object tags, which indicates the sensitivity of the particular file or the object. Okay. We will use this information later in the Quicksight, but I just want to highlight this particular importance of this metadata. Now that we have completed the lab 3 up until this point, the lab 4 as well. Select start from metadata primary, limit 10. Also to note, to get familiarized with more queries, here are some of the various examples that you can start getting familiarized from. Okay. Now next on to lab 5, you will start creating a Quicksight account. Click on this link in a new tab. One additional information that you will make a note from my existing lab workshop is this account ID. Or even if you're doing this in your own setup, make a note of this account ID. The Quicksight account creation is pretty straightforward. Since I have already created, I'm unable to recreate back. two additional information that you will be needing. You will have to use the account ID in place of these numbers. These are just placeholders to illustrate in an example. WS participant role participant and your account ID at test.com. And similarly, this one. Select all the S3 buckets. Uncheck this optional add-on and create the account, Quicksight account. Once this has been created, we will come back and go to the lake formation to create some additional permissions. Why are we doing this setup here? We are going to grant access to the Quicksight user with the selected permissions to start accessing the tables in the S3 metadata table bucket. Again, going to grant. And in this time, we are going to use SAML users and groups. We will have to give a Quicksight user information. Okay. How will we get this? Go to Cloud Shell. Give this CLI, AWS Quicksight list users, account ID. Use this, your account ID, along with the region name. This is the region name. And here you will be positioning the account information copied from here. With this CLI, you will be getting the ARN of the Quicksight user information. Copy this information and bring it and put it here. Essentially, we are telling this is a Quicksight user, and I'm going to provide certain permissions on certain catalog tables, which is this one, catalog. These steps continue to remain the same, just like the previous step when we gave for the IAM user. Select and describe and grant. Once you complete this particular step, you will see this additional two rows, the participant, Quicksight user, principal ARN name. The database tables are going to be the same as the previous ones, and the permissions are select and describe. Okay. The one difference between the previous step and this one is earlier it was the IAM role that we logged in as, and now it's going to be the Quicksight user. The rest of the information continues to remain the same. Now that we have given this fine-grained permission, coming back to Quicksight, now that we are in a stage where we have created successfully the Quicksight account, first step is create the data set, new data set. And this time we are going to say Athena, create data source. Instead of this one, we are going to say use custom SQL. And we are going to select the SQL query from here. Step number 6 on lab 5, this one. We'll have to Control V, confirm query. And this will successfully complete this one. Import the spice for quicker analytics, visualize. Once you click on this one, You will see an empty page. Click on object tags, just like this one. And the default autograph will provide you with a list of details related to the object tags. Remember, in the Athena query editor, I point your attention to object tags, which had certain information of different sensitivity types. Going back here, we are doing the visual view, right? With no sensitivity, sensitivity public, investigate, and so on and so forth, and their count. And if you want to visualize in a pie chart, then click on this and change it to pie chart. Depending upon the way how you want to render the visualization, you can select either of these and start building the dashboards. This is one simple way of selecting one particular metadata to visualize. Obviously, based on your data set, there might be something unique and you want to gain insights on specific ones. Feel free to leverage your SQL and Quicksight expertise to continue building the dashboards. Okay. Just want to summarize what we have done so far. We started creating a S3 table bucket, which would be the repository for all the metadata information of your primary data source in an iceberg table format. We created this table bucket, and the primary data source is this one associated with the metadata table information. In the third lab, we provided certain set of permissions to act upon for certain roles here, and then used Athena query editor to query the data. And we took that further information to start building using Quicksight to visualize the data. Every time we introduce a new service, we will have to make sure this Quicksight or any other service have appropriate permissions to the original source, and that has been done through this step through lake formation. So here we have a centralized view of all the fine-grained permissions of the different principles to access the metadata information in the metadata table buckets. Okay. And these are the steps that we have completed as outlined in the workshop lab 1 through 5. Going back to the presentation, I just want to conclude this with the references. The first one is the workshop, where you can start getting familiarized with the details that we have just outlined. And the second one is the documentation as well. Just want to thank you for your time, and I hope you found this session useful. Thanks a lot. Bye.